Hi everyone, welcome to today's conversation with Mythological Taxidermy and Anna's Sketch Studio, a virtual program in this year's M&T Bank Clothesline Online Festival. This festival has been the Memorial Art Gallery's largest fundraiser for more than 60 years. Although we've had to go virtual this year, our goals are still the same. We want to make sure we're highlighting and supporting the arts and our artists. So thank you all for joining us today. I just want to mention a few brief housekeeping items before we get started. We do have a live captioner with us today, so if you would like to see captions, you can click the closed captioning CC button at the bottom of your screen. After today's presentation, we'll also have time to answer questions that you've submitted for Anna and Brenda, so be sure to submit your questions at any time throughout today's conversation by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen as well. And then finally, after today's webinar ends, your browser should take you to a short survey about your experience. So please send us your feedback. It's really valuable for us to figure out what things we can improve moving forward. So now it's my pleasure to introduce today's artists. We have Brenda Killackey-Jones with us, and she's an artist who has been creating her one-of-a-kind creatures for the last 6 years. She uses mixed media to create her 2D, 3D images of imaginative personalities from pop culture's far-off lands. In 2019, she was selected by a panel of Disney judges to display her work at Disney's biannual D23 fan convention in Anaheim, California. She was one of 23 artists selected for this honor. We also have today with us Anna Overmoyer. She's a traditional and dimensional illustrator. She has always imagined the creatures that lurk just beyond our sight, pulling nature's strings. She creates paintings with watercolor and ink of fairies and mythical creatures. On the dimensional side, she creates puppets and sculptures of the same, often integrating wire, paper, polymer clay, acrylic paint, fiber, and found objects. Brenda, Anna, thank you for being with us today. I'm going to pass the mic to you guys now for your conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. What an honor to be here. Even without clothesline happening, we still get to be here and talk to each other. That's really cool.
Right, absolutely.
Nice to meet you, Brenda. Tell me, what role does imagination play in your creative process?
Well, for me, imagination has a lot to do with how I figure out how to fabricate things. So that's one of my big kind of goals when I either get a custom piece or it's just something that I want to make, is trying to figure out how to make what you see in your head and to turn into a 3D object. So like, for example, I have Zazu here on the side, who's a puppet from Lion King that I made last year. And it's like, you start with a picture of, okay, I want to make this puppet, I want to make it move, I want to make it articulate. And you start with, okay, what kinds of materials can I find in either my workshop, or what things can I find outside or on Amazon and I have to order. I try to use a lot of recycled things or just kind of things around the house to start building. So for me, imagination has a lot to do with the fabrication of things. And that's kind of one of the things I really enjoy, because then at the end you learn a lot more. So then the next time you make something, you're like, okay, I won't do this, but maybe I'll do something a little bit different to get a better result. So that's how it is for you. And I know, Anna, you have a lot of imagination in your drawings. I looked online and your fairy drawings, and then you have your little mushrooms next to you too. So a lot of very unique things. So if you can talk to the same thing, that would be great.
Thanks. I also relate a lot to what you're saying, that our materials are sort of what guide the creative process more than anything else, because if you can't make it, then you have to check that off your list. So I like to start with found objects also and let that sort of inspire something. And speaking to that also, I like going on nature walks and things like that. And I've sort of trained my eye to look for things that look like they could be a fairy in disguise. So that's kind of a fun way to get inspired, is to see like a stump or something that looks like maybe somebody crouched down if they were to move. And so I like to look for fairies in just like little bits of nature. If that were to be a fairy, what would that fairy look like?
Nice, yeah. What are the mushrooms made out of that you have right next to you there?
Oh, these mushroom guys are polymer clay. And I like it because they look kind of, and then I waterproof them, so it gives them that sort of gooey, shiny look.
Yeah, it's interesting because those are similar, because I read on your website that you make each one different, so each one's face is a little bit different.
Mhm.
And I make mandrakes that are kind of similar thing where
Yes, I love your
and they're oh, let me move them up. They have the little faces, and again, they're waterproofed with that shiny. I use like different forms of lacquer to make them shiny as well. So when I saw those, I was like, oh my goodness, those are so cute. And it's the same idea where it's nice when everybody can get something unique. So it's not a mass produced thing. It's something that my little mushroom is different than anybody else's little mushroom, and you can come up with a little backstory and things to go with it. So no, that's great.
I love your little mandrakes. I love that you can like put them in a greenhouse and they'll fit right in.
The goal was to try to make them as realistic as possible, and it's always funny if people come up and they're like, oh, how big will that get? It's like, it doesn't get any bigger. It's basically if you want that size, you're going to get that size. But it's kind of funny when people see things, and that means that it does look real. So then we can pat ourselves on the back and say, okay, that fabrication actually worked. So we can basically that's it. That fabrication will work. Absolutely.
Let's see. You bring some of fiction's favorite creatures to life. How do you make a mythological creature feel realistic? What is your research and development process like?
So I'm going to say that more with the dragons behind me, because those are things that where a lot of the things on the table are representative of something in pop culture. So like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, or I made Wally, or again, Zazu, things like that. My goal is to make it look as much like the actual creature out in the world, whether it be Wally or Zazu. But with the dragons, they're more, they develop as I make them. So I'll start with, inside is like taxidermy foam. So it's like a foam piece that's kind of that shape. Usually it's a deer. Again, there's no animal parts in it, so they're vegan. There's no deer inside them. It's just foam. But then I'll start layering on paper mache and cloth mache, and then building them. And that's where the imagination, but also where kind of the direction of the creature comes, is kind of, it does it on its own, I guess is what I'm saying. So sometimes you have an idea in your head and you're saying, okay, I want to make one that looks mean, or I want to make one that looks like a specific thing, like Maleficent I had made recently for somebody. But then other times it's like the thing takes on a life of its own. So it starts looking, maybe really happy, or maybe it looks pensive, or so these are medium-sized ones. Some of the bigger ones have more kind of personality kind of imbibed into them. Does that even answer that question at all? Oh, favorite creatures to life. How do you make a mythological creature feel realistic? So that a lot like what we're talking about of trial and error. So looking for the idea of dragon scales, I started with making actually individual scales out of folded material and then gluing them on one at a time. And it took a long time, and they looked nice, but it didn't really look like an actual, what I think like a dragon would look. It wouldn't have triangles sticking off of it. So then these ones are more of either material or even paper towels, gives it a bit more of a pattern to it that looks like scales. Or I'll have to go in and sculpt them individually, which again takes longer if you're going to do things individually. But we found that paper towels really makes it look like scales, which is odd because I would have never thought that. So again, it's trial and error, trying something, and if it works, continue down that road. If you get something, and then either you have to remake it and take it apart, try again. And we're never really happy with it, right? You're probably the same, where it's like you make it and then you go, oh, I wish I had it more like this, or I wish this was a little different.
Next time.
Yeah, right. But that's how you develop and grow. And, in year 10 and year 15 and year 20, things will look different depending on your own skill level, and also just the way your brain is working on what you want things to look like. Yeah.
Cool.
So what do you think with that, Anna?
Well, conceptually, realistic is funny for fantasy creatures because they're not real, but I think
What? There's no real dragons?
I mean, not always real in a real physical. They're always in the spirit world, right? We don't necessarily see them. But all fantasy is sort of based on real life creatures and plants and stuff like that in one way or another, sort of combining different animals and different anatomies to create something that's not necessarily real, but could be. And a fun way a way I like to make that my interpretation different than someone else's interpretation is looking at nature again and looking at the way things evolve and the types of animals that do look otherworldly are sort of they grow up to be that way out of self-preservation, trying to hide themselves in their environment. So if you're walking through the woods or something or wherever, and you walk right past something that looks like moss, but it's really like a spider or something, or you know those like praying mantises that look like orchids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
those types of things. They look like they're fairies because they're one thing that look like another thing. And so I try to incorporate that as much as possible, sort of making it look like it's something that's hiding and trying to look like something else.
Gotcha.
So, for instance, like this was a fairy that I just made. He is trying to be a leaf, and if you were hiding in a certain way, you would walk right past it and not realize that you were passing a fairy. Or this guy who's pretending to be a flower.
Oh, nice. That's really cool. Now, are those of polymer clay as well?
Yeah, mixed media.
Okay.
But polymer based, yeah.
Okay. And it almost looked like, were there clothes on them too? Is it fabric or painted on them?
Yeah, so they're a little, I think we're gonna, yeah. So they can sort of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they have little paper wings, also with wire inside of them, so that you can sort of pose them as well. And that allows me to like take them out into wherever and sort of pose them and make it look like they're hiding in that spot.
Yeah. Well, that's really great.
Thanks.
And those would be things too that kids could have, that, you know, older kids probably, but things that they could bring outside and, you know, play within the natural world to have them spend more time outside and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, also, so you sort of talked a little bit about your paper towel texturing and stuff like that, and playing with mixing different sort of things to experiment. What materials do you like to work with on the day-to-day?
I've been working with lots of different things lately, which I enjoy. Initially, I did a lot with, it's like a 2-part resin clay. So this is like a little hatching dragon. So it's a little handmade dragon. It has acrylic eyes, and then I'll make an egg for each one, and it has little sparkles and gems on them. So they're each individually made. But the clay itself, you have to knead together. So it's like a 2-part, almost like where you have the resin glue that comes out of the gun, and then it has the 2 parts, and you mix it together, and then it keeps things. It's the same idea, but it's a clay, so you don't actually have to bake it in a kiln. So it gets pretty much rock hard on its own. So yes, it's similar to the Sculpey, the polymer clay, but you don't have to bake it, is kind of the difference. So like with the eyes, I can put them in and not have to worry about them melting or becoming deformed and creepy looking if I had to bake them. So I started working with that just because it seemed like it offered a lot of, it seemed like the things became very sturdy, I guess is a way. I'm always worried about like things where, depending on what age you give them to kids, you know, you wouldn't want them to fall apart. So these seemed like something that was becoming kind of rock hard. Let me grab one of these. One of the first things I was making too, these are dragon eggs that have an eye in them. So they're similar to the egg from the little hatching dragon, but this one's just only the eye that is there. So kids can get these, and I wouldn't recommend throwing them at things, but they can roll down the stairs and they can be pretty sturdy, which is nice. And also with these, we tell the kids, if you put it under their pillow, in 100 years, they'll get their own dragon, so it'll hatch. If not, they can come see me, and I'll make sure that they get another one. So anyway, but yeah, so I started with a 2-part resin clay, but it's very heavy. It takes a lot to knead it together to get it into the right consistency. So it's kind of a laborious process. So I started kind of thinking about what other things I can use. I started using tinfoil as armature for a lot of things because it's light, it's inexpensive. I was using it around the studio for to paint on. If I was spray painting something, it would be underneath, and I could reuse some of these things that would go into the garbage. So a lot of the things, like the tiki bird on the inside of Jose here is tinfoil. You wouldn't know it because he's all feathered up there. So he has the 2-part resin clay head, but then inside his body is tinfoil, and then it has a thin layer of clay just to give it a little bit more robustness, so it's not going to be falling over or anything. And then it's faux fur, and then as good sourced feathers as I could get. So hopefully they're harm-free colored feathers on it, but they're actually feathers. And then he's got his little seashell, and then bamboo, and then wood for his little stand. So I kind of use, it sounds like the same as you, whatever I can find, whatever's hanging around. If there's a problem, I'll go, okay, what do I have that's round? And then you start looking at, I have a round styrofoam ball, will that work? Or I have a round clear plastic ball, will that work? And again, the more you do things, the more you learn what works and what doesn't work. So that kind of really shapes where things go. And then lately, over COVID, since we were all kind of stuck there, I decided to learn how to do 3D printing, which is a beast in and of itself. So I 3D printed Wally here. So he was the first thing I made, which was really little, overstepping the bounds of what I should have made something little. I said, no, let's make this humongous thing. And it was supposed to work, and I have all the electronics to make them work, like roll and move, but I need to find some teenage kid who knows something about robotics to come over and get it to work, because I've kind of given up. But yeah, so that was a kind of a cool project. So I'm hoping as time goes on to use some 3D printing, maybe in some of the objects as well, because it's very lightweight. So you might be able to make armatures out of 3D printing things. So that's the kind of, I feel like, my next step of development of things, because I love doing the painting and I love doing the weathering. So it's kind of like, if I could figure out how to make things easier sometimes, I could go into the things that I really like to do, which is like the painting on other things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and what about you, Anna?
I'm sorry, I still can't get over the fact that you 3D printed that guy. He's so big.
He's not full size, but he is, I think he's 85% full size. I didn't realize that, otherwise I would have printed him full size, but I was like, oh, this looks good enough. But really, if you looked at the Pixar movie, he would be about probably up a little bit higher.
Well, you fooled me.
I know, and he's awesome. So I enjoy him, but our house is getting full of gigantic things like him. So at some point, right now I'm making BB-8 and DJ Rex. So I'm making 2 more giant robots. So our house will be overrun with giant robots. If anyone wants giant robots, then, yay, robots.
I do.
Get a 3D printer, you'll be all set. You'll pull your hair out, you'll get really mad, you'll swear at it because it's a very touchy, horrible thing. So if you heard people say that 3D printing is hard, it's yes. And then the only way to learn it is to do it and just get mad at it and take it apart and put it together. And yes, it's a labor of frustration and kind of love, I'm not sure.
Well, what doesn't show, it looks like all love right there.
All right, yeah, right now, because a couple months ago, I was like, I can't get one part to print, why can't I print? So, and they're going right now, one printer is, the other one I turned off because it's noisy, but BB-8 should be done in 2 weeks, I'm hoping. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Woohoo!
Oh my God, that's awesome.
You look like you're the polymer queen, though. You've got polymer clay down.
Yeah. So yeah, I do the puppet thing a lot. where I call them puppets. I guess some people would call them art dolls or something.
Yeah, well, they move, so you can make
Yeah.
them.
I call them puppets because you could use them for stop motion puppetry.
Yes, very good.
So that's sort of how I say art dolls or puppets, whatever. But I like to use wire underneath so that as long as I don't coat it in anything like clay or paper mache or anything like that, you can continually move it. So I sort of wrap them up in fabric and yarn and things like that I can just sort of find at thrift stores and things like that. So it's all mostly reused things, which I think makes them look weathered and real, like they're real life. And I'm not a great seamstress, but I like the fact that you can sort of see the seams on their clothing because I like to imagine that they made the clothes themselves. So I don't really try to cover up my stuff like that. And like I said, these are paper wings, so that there's a little bit of a luminance to them, just like in, I shine a light through it. They sort of glow a little bit.
Yeah, they almost look like they have iridescence too to them.
Yeah, they have a little bit of iridescent paint on it too, that it's still see-through though, so it still has that, retains that luminance. And I like to incorporate, like with this guy again, everyone's always giving me old craft supplies and stuff, and I try to incorporate them as much as possible. So I've got these little fake flowers and things like that, little wire antennas, things like that.
That one's awesome. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I put them in jars to keep them safe and to keep them from running away.
Very cool. So if somebody gets it, they get it inside the jar.
Yep, they come with the jar that they hang.
Wow.
And then they write little descriptions about each one and the magical properties it has, or like what its place in the, what its job in the world is. So for instance, this one will clear the air, so to speak. It is harder to be misunderstood if you have this fairy around.
Oh, nice.
And they all have little stories like that, sorry.
Do you give them all names too?
Yes, so this one is the Solier fairy. And I base most of their names on phonetic, my English or my American interpretation of Irish words.
Gotcha.
So Irish people would probably be like, what is that word? But it means something to me.
Yeah.
And then for the larger, those are like sort of something that I mass produce with love. And then for this one is a bigger one. And this one is a totally, shine a light on her too. Totally, I think more like the stuff that you do more often is like a ton of materials used in one piece.
Yeah. Now, are those feathers on it on the bottom?
Yeah, so much like you used sort of fun fur for your, or what do you call that?
Gopher. Yeah.
Yeah. For your feathers, I use the same sort of thing, and then I paint it over it so that it has sort of a rigidity to it, and I don't have to worry about it mossing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use some fiber. I think this is wool for her hair, things like that. And then there's little foam eggs that I made.
So she has like a bird nest on her head there, or is holding on?
So lots and lots of materials in this one, but still I always go back to polymer for anything that I don't know what else to do for it. I'm really interested in moving towards doing more paper clay though.
I've used that a little bit. It's messy a bit, which probably is no problem, but yeah, it was hard to get it to, like, I don't know. We used it back when my daughter was little. We tried to make things with it kind of as a family, and it was like oatmeal, like lots and lots of oh, I think you're talking about actually the paper clay that comes in bricks. Are you talking about the brick or like that comes in a bag and it's powdery?
Oh, well, I have a recipe that someone gave me, a fellow artist gave me, to make your own
Wow,
with
nice.
like blended recycled paper. That's why I love the idea of it so much, is that it's I try to use recycled things as much as possible and no raw materials. Of course, the exception is the polymer clay. You can't really use recycled polymer clay. Once it's baked and that's it. And it's essentially plastic. So I'm looking for alternatives, and I thought paper clay has a really cool texture. It's lighter, and it's mostly recycled paper.
Gotcha.
That being said, I have
Yeah,
not
yeah,
actually used it yet, but I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it was going all over, but that sounds great. Well, good luck with trying new things. That's always exciting to go through that stage of, oh, that didn't work, and then okay, maybe it's working a little bit. Okay, now I got it.
Yes.
I think the only other material that I've been using is silicone, which has been interesting.
Ooh.
So I made a mold of, these are bracelets actually, and they have like a wire in them, but I made a mold of the dragon itself. So it's like a big long stick of a dragon with little eyes in it. And then you can wrap it around. So it's like a bracelet, and it just sticks around your arm, which I have other bracelets on, but basically like that. So learning how to use like poured substances. So where the resin clay is like a two-part that you squish together with your hands, this is something that you mix and then pour into the mold and then put a wire in and then pour the other half. So that's been interesting, learning how like other substances, like I say chemicals, but other materials use, because these are skin safe. So there's no, they're not made of latex or anything that would cause any allergies. But that's been fun too, of just seeing what other, because you get like a bendy form versus something that's so rigid. So you could make other like little molds of other things that, like if you wanted a fairy to have a squishy nose, you could mix it and then like make a teeny little nose out of it. So it's, ways, if you have a feeling that you want, or something to look a certain way, kind of like your wings that you were talking about, where you wanted them to be clear. So it was like, I wanted the bracelets to be bendable, but yet to be dense enough where they're not just going to fall off. So that was interesting to learn all the different kinds of silicones out there and which ones work for this type of thing and then which ones don't work. We know a lot about those that don't work for this type of thing. But that was about a year of figuring out. So now we got them down pretty good. But yeah, so I've been making those, and that was like Renaissance fairs, things like that. The kids like to wear.
I bet, yeah.
The little bracelets and things. So, and hopefully we'll be back to those next year, right?
We'll see.
Please, yes. Did you make anything special over the COVID break here? Were you able to spend time learning stuff?
Well, I finished this emu fairy here, this one. This was my big, like, I finished it.
Yeah, yeah.
During that time off. I also did some paintings. But yeah, I meant to do the paper clay experimentation. And I mean, it's not over yet, so there's still time.
You got time. Just mix it up, make it, do it tomorrow. Start figuring out what you want to do with that. I think unfortunately you have time, but
look on the bright side. I did make a lot of panic turtles too, which is kind of like these guys.
Oh, that's so cute.
They're not really fairies like the rest of the things that I make, but they have such a following that I can't stop making them, and I love them. And I've been making them for 6 years, and it's still fun to make them. And I make hundreds and hundreds of these guys, and they're just like, there's a batch of them.
Oh my gosh.
And they panic for you. So like people love to have them on their desks at work or something. And the pandemic has been a big boost to my sales because everyone's feeling the panic lately.
There you go, perfect. Go panic turtles.
Yes. Yeah.
And they come in other colors too? Or are they all green, or they have
Mostly I have them in blue spots and red spots. And those, I think I have some black ones on the website too, little black spots. But also I will do special edition panic turtles. So I've done like Halloween ones and a lot of Christmas ones with little twirly Christmas hats on. So
no
that's
COVID ones? Come on, get some COVID ones
no
going.
COVID ones. Although I did see some people putting tiny masks on them, which I thought was adorable.
It's such a good idea.
It
Yeah,
is.
do that.
I'll steal their idea. How about you? What have you been doing on COVID?
That was the 3D was our big, that was about it. I was realizing I was adding more stress than taking the stress away. It's like, great. Now I've made it so I have to come down every 15 minutes to see, is it making garbage or is it printing something? What is it doing? I get up like 3 times at night to come down, and it's like you have a new little baby. You're like, okay, are you still working? Yup. Okay. Are you still, what are you doing down here? Now I feel like I've got it under control enough where I can leave the house. I should have had a panic turtle the whole time.
There you go.
No, a 3D printing panic turtle. I think I might need to get one of those because it's getting annoying.
I'll trade you one for Wally.
Yeah, sure.
Just kidding. Oh my God. I thought it was ironic though that you said that is the 3D printer making garbage or is it making the Wally, because that's kind of fitting.
It makes spaghetti. So the thing will just it will lose wherever it was, and then it will just spit out like a big string, and then you'll wake up and it will have just a ball of string, and then you feel bad because you have to throw it away. But this is also, it's going to degrade in the environment. It's going to disappear. So
really?
So you can use different things to 3D print, but they recommend you use PLA when you start because it's a little bit more user friendly. But it will melt and then it will go away. It's made of, I think, soy, possibly. It's made of something that is not going to stay. So at some point, Wally will just become dirt or soy or whatever he is made out of. But yeah, it's not gonna, all these things, and it could take a while, I'm guessing, but they will.
Blew my mind.
Yeah, so it's not, the other things you can print with will be more permanent. So poor Wally eventually, but in 100 years or who knows how long it will take. So I'm not worried.
Again, though, it's fitting to the story that he would decompose.
He would become, right, because you wouldn't want him to be garbage, right?
He hates garbage.
Exactly. You want to make more garbage. You want to make less garbage.
I can't imagine him ever being garbage, though. I don't think anyone would ever throw him away.
No, that was one of my favorite movies. It's very depressing, but it's very fitting, and it's depressing because it's true.
Exactly.
Which isn't good.
That's that. Ugh. Yeah.
The Pixar movies that give you that pit in your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Are there any things that you're going to work on in the future? Any things that are coming down the pike?
Well, the paper clay thing I'm really excited about, and more, I'm thinking about doing some more fantasy trees with paper mache, because I started doing it as a demo for my teaching job. I was starting to make paper mache trees, and I really, really enjoyed the texture that, like brown paper, when you roll it up and it starts to sort of crack and break, and it creates some really cool, like craggy bark texture. That mixed with wire and things like that I think I'm really excited to create some like really spooky fairy trees.
And then you could have little fairies hanging out, climbing up them.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I like
all
that.
my jars hanging from it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Next to your clothesline, you can have a big tree and the jars with lights in them or something. You'll be
totally
awesome, right?
How about you? What's your next big thing?
So I've been working on doing, I call them 2D, 3D pictures. So that's why when you were talking before this all started, you were talking about how you were doing like 3D things with your students, but like on a flat base. So I've been doing, like, well, this is one that's the man in the moon from, yeah, so that image, but it's 3D. So I'm just sculpting on top of I couldn't use regular canvas, so it's these canvas boards. It's the only way to really give it like a base type of a thing. So these I started probably less than a year ago. And I was doing like, some of them are just kind of fantasy pieces like that. And then I was doing characters again, like, let's see. It's one of the vultures from, I want to say, is it Snow White? I think so.
Yeah, that's Snow White.
So it's, again, it's like a 3D thing, but it's flat. And then here's an Oswald type of a thing. So they're like 3D, but 2D. The issue is they're hard to like take pictures of because you can't tell that they're 3-dimensional. So I haven't really done too much with them yet, but again, hopefully life after COVID, then if I can get them out in the public, I think you can see them where just a picture, you can't realize it's a 3D thing.
Yeah.
So they're all just like a one-of thing. So I've been trying to work on like, what do I put in the backgrounds of them, to give it, I don't necessarily want to paint super detailed in the background because it takes a long time to do the 3D part of it. So I've just been trying to kind of messing around to figure out how to make these something people would like, because I like painting and I like sculpting. So I'm like, I could put them together. I don't really like painting on flat, where you like to paint on a flat piece. I've never been a big fan, but if it's something that I made that I can paint. So I figured out this was a way that I could make things where it's easier for people to buy and take home, where a lot of times it shows if you're like, oh, that's, I'm going to bring this giant bird, or I'm going to, it's hard to pack all this stuff to bring to shows. It's hard to mail gigantic things. So I've been trying to think of ways to make still 3D things, but that might be a little bit easier to transport and to show.
Yeah.
So
I always hear the, I don't have any shelf space thing, which is an excuse that I also have when looking for art to buy. So I hear your plight, trying to make something that's wall art while still maintaining the 3D thing that we all love.
Right, because I felt that, and I'm sure you are very into the fairies and the nature. You kind of make rules for yourself of like, these are the things that I should be focusing on, or I want to focus on. So my rule was it had to be like alive or kind of alive. So like everything has some type of a face, and even even these 2D, 3Ds, they're all something that could be alive, or it's an image of something that could be alive in some realm. So that's kind of where I draw that little box of, like a mandrake is alive. It's a little creature. Audrey too is alive. She, she ate people. So things like that, where it's a thing that could be alive. So I was trying to figure out a way to make that into the 2D, 3D. So I was like, if it had a face, I could make it. If it doesn't have a face, then no.
Yeah, and it's all like pop culture. You got the pop culture thing too. That seems to be like your area, which I think is really cool. It's easy to find your stuff in a crowd.
It's the big gigantic thing. It's funny, the Skeksis, that guy there. Do you know what the Skeksis are from the Dark Crystal?
Yes.
Yeah.
The big bird guys.
Those are my most favorite thing in the world to make, because it's all, I'll get like a box of like garbage lace and like really old stuff, and then I'll make their clothes after I make their face. Then that's like the two really cool parts, is you get to make the face, but then you get to make the clothes to go along with it too. So yeah, I really enjoy making those. What's your favorite thing to make, by the way?
Everything. I mean, everything has a different place for me. If I'm just like not in a creative mindset and I don't have any great ideas, then I'll just sit down and make hundreds and hundreds of these little guys, because I have it down to a science and they're fun and they warm my heart and make me giggle about how clever I am. I can zone out and do that. If I'm feeling really, really creative, I will bring out more of these guys.
Gotcha.
And they sort of emerge. I don't really usually plan out what they're going to look like in the end. And when you use, here are some ones that are in the making right now. So this is what they look like before any finishing touches like paint. And
Oh, wow. Huh.
so this is like what they look like underneath their clothes. And they,
Does that tinfoil in its head too?
yep. So I left myself some space to, I find that once the tinfoil has done its job, it's kind of, I don't need it in there anymore. So I can sort of scoop it out, and then there will be a big hollow gap in there, and I can put whatever else I want in there. So I'll go through my junk drawer, look for maybe some fun flower, fake flowers, or maybe some fun fur, or like felting stuff, whatever. And whatever I find that inspires me, and that will pretty much set the scene for what he is, or what it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing inside. I know people never get to see the inside of our stuff. It just magically appears. It's like, oh, there it is.
Totally.
It goes through a lot of stages before that.
Yeah, it's just a creative gift, you know?
No, it's the elves make it overnight. And then you just come down in the morning and it's like, oh, look, I got some little mini dragons. They just appeared. Yeah. Yeah, I do the same thing as you. If I'm not in the mood, but I know I have to do something, I will just make some of the things that I have to make a bunch of, like the bracelets where it's just, okay, I want to do these colors, I want to do those colors, or the little mandrakes, you just start, crafting them, maybe do 10 of them, and then that's it for that amount of time. But yeah, the more fun days are the days you get to goof around and
make a mess.
You don't want to see the rest of my basement. It's not nice. Do you do stuff in your house? Is that where your studio is?
Yep. I used to have a space in the Anderson Arts Building, and those spaces are huge, and I had half of it be a gallery and half of it be my workspace. But I found that I ended up pretty much living there anyway.
Okay.
So I moved to save money, and because I finally found myself having more space, I moved my studio into my living space, and I gotta say, I love it.
Well, then you can be with your bunny. You said you had your bunny and your guinea pig. So
bunny and a guinea pig.
That makes life better when you can be with your pets.
Totally. And you can work all night and not have to worry about driving home at the end of the day or anything like that. And
yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So you work in your basement?
Yeah. But yes.
Sounds cold.
It's nice in the summer. The winter it can be a little chilly. There's no windows, so you kind of are like, oh, I'm in a cave. And I work on the floor a lot too, just because I spread stuff out. Usually I don't have this table, so I just basically spread things out over the whole floor, and then go from one thing to the other, and then every couple months I'll clean and then start over again. So
it looks so cool though. Most magical basement ever.
You can have little kids come down.
Cool.
So I think we've gotten through the questions, right? Basically, was there anything else before the questions and answers?
There was one I really wanted to do.
Sure.
To hear from you. Oh, have you tried making something that didn't work out?
Oh yeah, a lot. Tons and tons of things. I think there's been some dragons that have gone through like 3 or 4 iterations where I won't like it, and then I'll just take it all back off again and then start back over because the inside part is fine. So those are the things I think that are the most number of them that I can say, because I think there were 2 or 3 of them over the years, because the big ones are big, and I don't make that many of them. So it's basically I'll have 2 or 3 until they sell, and then I'll make a couple more, but there'll be a couple that will be around for a year or 2, and you're like, okay, buddy, we're gonna take some stuff off of you, and then we'll see if we can make you a little bit more interesting, or try something different with it. But yeah, I mean, always with little things, you're kind of halfway done with something, and you're like, it's just not, I'm not feeling it, and then put it aside, and then maybe come back to it later. How about yourself? Do you have things that you're kind of like halfway through?
I think that's going to happen no matter what, as long as you're trying new things, which is the point, right? Then the mistakes are you know, I guess it not working out is bound to happen.
Right. And I'm an elementary art teacher, and I always tell the kids, like, you know, you're not going to like half the stuff you do. So let's not, I can't do it, I don't like it. It's like, yep, that's part of being an artist, is sometimes you like it and sometimes you don't. Any artist that's out there, you know, the most famous ones to people just starting out, that's just part of it, is that some things you look at and you're like, oh, that's just awful. And then other things you're like, I really love it. And then sometimes other people like the things you don't like, and they don't like the things that you thought was, you know, it was like, this is the best thing. And then people are like, eh. What are you doing? Like, this came out exactly what I wanted it to look like. But that doesn't mean other people will like it too. So we tend to have our own museum in our basement too, you know? Mm-hmm.
I would say also, when you're working on your personal stuff, even if it doesn't like work out the way you thought it would, I wouldn't see that as like a failure per se. I think the great art, my favorite projects came from me working through that period of it not working the way I wanted to. And so you strip that part off, and you, like you said with your dragons, like maybe it's still a work in progress, but it may not look great now, but that means it's not done yet.
Exactly. It might be reborn like a phoenix, and then boom, you got a brand new one that somebody might really love. So, and you want to find good homes for them all, so that, you know, just like your fairies, you want people to get them and be like, I love this fairy. I want to put this fairy right where I want to see it every day. And then you feel proud that it's like, oh my gosh, somebody really wants to, you know, have something that you put your heart and soul into, and that you work so hard at, and then it like goes off, and then it's like, yay, you know, goodbye fairy, and hopefully you have a good life with your new people. Mm-hmm. Do you get attached to some of them too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to let go. I mean, I think it gets easier and easier.
Right.
As you become used to being that parent that's like shipping your kid off to college. Right.
Yes. But yeah, there's some, yeah. The tiki birds, I make different colored ones, and like sometimes there'll be one that I really, really like, and it will have been, you know, sitting around me for a while, and then it, you know, it's in a box. It's like, no, I don't, you know, I like that tiki bird. That was my favorite one. You know, that was my favorite one they bought. Why did they buy that one? But then realize, okay, now you have a next favorite one. But yeah, it's always a little sad to see something go. But
I do have about 3 pieces, I think, of my own that I would not sell.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But that's it. It's
yeah, you can't have everything. There's got to be a line to where it's not just your house of stuff. It's got to be, yeah. I have a dragon that I love. I have the first werewolf I ever made is upstairs, and then, I mean, I guess I have more than that. So, oops. I already, I have more than 3. But it's okay.
There will be more than 3 eventually.
Yeah. Are you back, Brenda?
I'm back with you guys. Thank you so much for letting us listen to both of you tell us so much about your work. We have a few minutes left, and we do have some questions here for you guys. So I'm just going to ask them if that sounds good. Anna, will you be offering another one of your shroom hunts at all in the near future?
Ooh. So the game of shrooms was something that I participated in a few weeks ago. That's actually a worldwide art scavenger hunt. So I did that as part of a bigger group. I think I was the only one doing it in Rochester though this year. Maybe next year we'll have more people doing it. But that was so fun. And I was telling a lot of my local art friends about how fun it was. And we're thinking about doing something for Halloween, an art scavenger hunt for Halloween, not mushroom themed, but
that sounds awesome. I
really
love Halloween. I love
stages,
October. Yes, please do that. That sounds really exciting. And just outdoor scavenger hunt activities are so fun. I love them so much. I think it's a great idea. I hope you guys do it. Another question for you, Anna. Have you ever considered doing a book or a magazine art for your fantasy illustrations that you make?
Originally that was what I was doing my fairy illustrations for. and then sort of ended up just doing them as one-offs, but I have enough now that maybe I will. I have considered doing it. They're all about the right size.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I guess a question for both of you that I have, and by the way, you're getting lots of love in the chat and in the Q&A. People appreciate how enthusiastic you are about your work. And it really shows in how you're talking about your work. I mean, it's so creative, and it shows how much you guys enjoy creating and bringing to life these creatures that we see, you know, on shows and in movies and read about in books. You guys make amazing work. I still can't believe that you learned how to 3D print, Brenda. That just seems like mind-boggling. That's absolutely crazy. I've heard that it's challenging, so props to you.
You could do it too. Just got to get one and then just start. That's really the only, there's no magic way. Just do it and get through it.
How does scale play into your works? Obviously Wally is huge for you, Brenda. What's the biggest and smallest piece that you've created? And then Anna, you too, I would say probably that your panic turtles, which I need like 10 of all over my desk because they're great. Perfect timing. But what's the biggest thing that you've created for both of you guys?
So the biggest thing I've made is I have a life-size Jack Skellington and Sally, and then Zero in the doghouse for Zero in my dining room. So they're like whatever the ceiling is, height. So they were one of the first things I made out of the PVC pipe and then material, and then I sculpted their faces. So they're the biggest, and then the smallest are the little teeny tiny dragons, and then I make little porgs that look like the dragons. Actually, the dragons more look like the porgs. And then I made a little bit, well, the child, otherwise known as Baby Yoda. It's a little teensy guys.
So cute. Anna, what about you?
Oh my God, I want to see that Jack Skellington, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
That would be freaky. You're correct. These would be the smallest things that I make. I think have probably made ever. And they can sort of cover a whole table at a booth, so that's kind of fun, and everybody can sort of afford them. So I love making those. And I think the largest, well, the largest thing I made was a full-scale sculpture of a man covered in fairies in high school. I made that. So wow. I don't know, it wouldn't be up to my current standards, but I think that was the biggest thing I've ever made.
That's amazing. What materials did you use?
I used terracotta clay.
Wow.
For that.
That's huge.
Which was tricky because the kiln that was at my high school was not big enough to obviously fit a full-grown standing man.
A full-grown man.
So we had to do it in like different pieces and then glue it together. It was a nightmare, and it's still there in the high school because they haven't figured out how to move it yet.
Or because that's how beautiful and awesome it is.
Right.
You'll have to put a picture of that up somewhere too. We want to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Anna and Brenda, thank you so much for letting us listen in on your conversation today. I feel like I learned so much and saw so much great work. I could stay on this Zoom webinar forever and just have you guys showcase your works. There's so much beautiful stuff that you guys are making. Hopefully we can see it in person, you know, next year at Clothesline. So thank you again for everything today. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick so that people can see where to find your work online. So if you'd like to purchase your own magical creatures from Anna and Brenda, you can visit Brenda's shop at mythologicaltaxidermy.com. And Anna's sketch studio is online as well at annaovermoyer.square.site. Thank you everybody who attended today. We will be sharing a recording of today's webinar later this week if you want to watch again, or if you know anybody who is unable to join us today. And we just want to say thank you to all of you for supporting the gallery. Thanks to your support, we're able to provide programs like this. Clothesline Week is going on all week. So you can find more events to attend and lots of other fun stuff at our event hub at clothesline.rochester.edu. We have our M&T Bank matching challenge. If you'd like to donate to the museum, they're doing a 1-to-1 matching challenge. You can also join or renew your membership. This week we have our $15 off clothesline special all week long, so be sure to visit there to get your membership discount. And that's just in time for our Warhol exhibitions, which will be opening up in October. You can also find our clothesline t-shirt for this year, which is available for pre-ordering, and you can vote for your favorite 2020 artist that's participated in Clothesline Online, so be sure to find that and cast your vote online. And when you close today's webinar, you should be taken to an experience survey, so please let us know what your experience was like today. We love the feedback, and I think that's all I have for everybody. So be sure to support our artists online, and I hope to see some of you again later on at our other presentations this week. Brenda, Anna, thank you so much again. I hope you have a nice afternoon.
You too.
Bye, everyone.